Welcome back to the Comforting Voice podcast. I'm your host, Shasta Ray, and I am joined in the studio tonight by no one. No, it's just us. It's just us hanging out. Oh my gosh. This is kind of another informative, chit-chatty, bore you to sleep kind of podcast efforts, but it's going to be a good one. I have a biography and some information on my upcoming featured author, and we're going to talk a little bit about why I picked this particular author, and we're going to showcase him a little bit. So let's just get started on the episode. How is everyone? Have you had a good day? Have you had a good week? Have you had a good month? It's been a stressful year for so many people so far, and tension is high. People are being cranky with each other. Oh, gosh. Go to bed each night wound up. It's not good. So I'm here to offer a little positivity in your day, a little bit of permission to unwind, and basically just kind of leave all those sources of stress and anxiety and whatever you go through. Let's just put those on the back burner. They'll be there tomorrow for you. All right? They're not going anywhere. They're not going to change. And you need some rest. You need to detox a little bit and let yourself regenerate some cells and some energy so you're ready to go and take those on tomorrow with renewed energy. We all have to do it. I mean, let's face it. We all have to deal with the stuff we don't want to deal with, but we need some time to regenerate from that. And that's now, hopefully. Or maybe you're someone that just needs a friend for a while. I'm that too. I want to be nice to everybody out there and make you feel like somebody gives a darn, right? We all need that. We need that pat on the back to make us feel like we're going to get through this. We can do this. Right on. Okay, so what do you do at bedtime to get settled in? Do you turn this on after you've already got comfortable? Are you brushing your teeth right now? Are you doing your wind down thing where you're turning your bed out and getting your pillow ready, whatever, right? So do all that and crawl into bed and get your volume situated so that when you're in that comfortable position, you'll be able to hear, but you're going to have to kind of settle down and keep still to really pay attention. That's going to bore you to sleep. Seriously, your mind is going to be like, okay, I'm relaxed. All right, I'm going to pay attention now. And then it'll be morning before you know it. Trust me. Okay, so what do we got tonight? I just want to take this moment while you're settling in. Don't forget, take a few good, deep, cleansing breaths of air in, hold it for a couple seconds, and let it out. And do that slow and deep so you get a lot of oxygen in your lungs. And make some use of that because that's going to help your muscles relax and help you let go of tension. It's very good. And it helps facilitate a really good sleep also. So do that a couple times, not exaggerated. You don't want to make yourself dizzy or anything. That's not good. All right. And then while you're doing that, don't forget how I'm trying to get comfortable myself here. Oh my gosh, listen to me. I'm just a mess. Okay. So while you're doing that, I just want to take a minute and remind you, don't forget to subscribe or follow. However you're finding this on whatever platform you're listening on, do that. And if it's a notification thing, turn on those notifications. That way you know when I drop a new episode. And as I record this particular episode, I'm still only on Spotify, YouTube, and Patreon. And for now, I want to get a little bit of a library of episodes before I release it on all of the major platforms. That way, for a large majority of people that like to turn something on and then just binge listen while they sleep, there will be content to do that. Let's talk about Patreon. I've been massaging this. I've been trying to make this as fair as possible for everybody out there. I feel like everyone deserves to have access to ad-free podcasting with something like this. So if you go over to Patreon and it's under the Comforting Voice podcast, or go down to the show notes, the show description, however you're listening, and there should be a link for my link tree. And the Patreon link is on there. There's a Patreon link down there too. You can't get too lost. I have it everywhere. So go over to Patreon. You can join as a free membership, and there will be a little bit of a lag time, but the way I'm going to do this is a week after the regular release of every episode, it will be on the free Patreon membership level, so you don't have to pay anything. If you would like to support the show, you can go up in your membership level and do a support level, and that's cool. And each one gets increased benefits. So your first benefit is you're going to get a shout out on the podcast to recognize how awesome you are for joining the Patreon. And from there on, you're going to always get the free, ad-free content, no matter what level, free on up to the top tier. You're going to get some of those benefits are going to include early release of every episode. So for some of those upper tiers, I'm going to release on Mondays and Thursdays, where the regular content on every app out there, on YouTube, and on the lower levels of Patreon will release on Tuesdays and Fridays. All right, so is that clear as mud? Okay, early content Monday, Thursdays, regular Tuesdays, Fridays, and then some of those are going to have bonus content thrown in there, bonus episodes thrown in there, just depending on your level. And then finally, audiobooks. It'll be a lot of fun. So good stuff to come. I'm structuring this in a fun way, and you can support it just depending on what you're after for bonus content. Then, guess what? In a few weeks, like I said, this will be out on all the major apps, the Apple Podcasts and the Google Store apps that you can find everything. So stay tuned for all that development. Yay! And I do have the YouTube set up as a podcast, so it goes into kind of a playlist mode, and I'm still kind of learning on that. They've changed stuff up, and they're trying to make it friendly for everybody, which is really cool. It's really cool. Next, I have some very exciting news. Oh my goodness. The Colorbug universe is expanding. Yes, it is. I just set up Volume 3 of Patterns and Shapes. So yes, Patterns and Shapes has Volume 3 releasing in the next couple of days. Probably by the time you hear this, it's already going to be available on Amazon. So that's part of the De-Stress RX series of books by my pen name, Saffron Eve. So if you're interested in that, don't forget, show description. All your links are there. You'll get there. Trust me, no problem. I've made it very easy for you. For anyone out there in my stomping grounds, I just posted in my neighborhood app where people post all kinds of cool stuff that I released this podcast. So if anyone in Pueblo West, or the surrounding areas has found this podcast, thanks for joining me and welcome. Also, have you checked out the coloring books? Go do that. The Colorbug universe. I've got all kinds of stuff to find, and I am just now in the process. Again, maybe by the time this particular episode publishes, maybe the YouTube will be up and going. So I've got the Colorbug universe to support the coloring book empire with all 3 coloring books, and I'm going to do all kinds of fun stuff there. And everything is in the name of de-stressing and self-care and kind of, counteracting all of that junk going on in life that we have to put up with that raises our stress levels. We need something to counteract that. But not everyone has the time, ability, or desire to invest in learning something new. So my whole Colorbug aspect of all of this is, well, let's talk about the coloring books. It's the Bold and Easy series that's very popular right now. I should call it the Bold and Easy style that's very popular. It's big print and it's no details. So it's repeating patterns and shapes for those times that you just want to kick back and just fill in space with your markers or your colored pencils or whatever and have fun doing it and be on to the next image. right? No thinking involved, no stress involved. I've found out that some of the really cool coloring books out there and some of the really neat ones, you end up fixating on tiny details. Like the images are really great, but the details are tiny and it gets to be tedious. Sometimes you just want to kind of scribble color, just fill in space and be on with it. It lets your mind let go and you can just drift. You don't have to think about what you're doing, right? And it doesn't even matter what color you pick for each space. You could use the same marker. It's just about that satisfaction of, going through the motions and that visual that's involved. Wow. You want to take that coloring experience up to the next level? Go out on Amazon, and I'm going to try to find some good links and references for this. Use alcohol-based art markers, and they're a little bit different than regular magic markers or something in that nature. They just the ink melts into the paper and just spreads out. You don't even have to focus on the lines. Just get kind of close to the lines, and it just kind of fills in. It's wonderful. And then you know how, like, if you use a pencil or a crayon or even a regular marker and you go over the same spot, it gets darker. These keep it uniform. It doesn't have that overlap weird effect. So that's another thing that's really, really, really addicting for me. And you melt into the experience while the ink melts into the paper. It's just a different type of ink, and it's just wonderful to work with. The effect is beautiful. Even on the very simple patterns and stuff, it's just like, oh, wow, I did that. Cool. Like I said, you don't have to be a great artist to create great works of art. And sometimes you just want to whip through it and get to the next one and start something new. So it's great for everyone. Check it out. All right, enough banter about that. I also wanted to say another theory that I might as well just spit out and get out in the open with all of this. Childhood favorite here. This goes way back, and I'm talking, I was born in 1967. I'm old, people, okay? I'm 57. But I still fondly remember being a tiny little kid. There was only a couple of TV channels, and PBS had Sesame Street, Electric Company, Mr. Rogers, all that. Mr. Rogers paved the way for awesomeness in this world. And sometimes people kind of scoff at him, or maybe people don't take Mr. Rogers as seriously as they could. What he did, and a lot of people don't realize this, he was an ordained minister, but he felt that his ministry would be better leading by example and giving direct messages to children that they matter and that their feelings matter. Because up until kind of that point in time, people kind of dissed on kids' feelings a lot. Like it just wasn't really perceived as a thing. And especially when he was young, he had kind of some issues with health and this and that. And he had a grandfather, if I remember correctly, that really validated his feelings and who he was. And it shaped and molded him. And he wanted to do that for future generations of children because he felt it was very, very important to acknowledge emotions and how we respond to things. So he did a stellar job of that. Oh my gosh, he's one of my life heroes. Honestly, we need more Mr. Rogers in this world. And part of this podcast is kind of an extension of that mentality. It's like, I want to validate that everyone has high stress and outside pressures can really get to us, and it can affect our health. It can affect our sleep patterns. It can affect our deep psyche. And sometimes in this world, we just don't even know if we matter much. But maybe by listening to this podcast, I can make you feel like you matter for just a little bit, a couple times a week. And maybe that is just enough friendship extension to make you sleep easy and wake up the next morning kind of feeling like your batteries are recharged and you can do this. You can get through another day. You can get through the challenges that life presents and you can maybe be better from it in some small way. That's my hope. I would love to be able to change the world for the better in some small way. And if that's just merely passing positivity along at a key moment in your day, oh my gosh, my job's done. I'm happy. So let's talk about our featured author. With all that said, because I truly feel like this gentleman falls into that whole Mr. Rogers theory that I have going on. His approach was different, but he was a minister. And I was introduced to this man, not personally, not directly, but to his work when I was a teenager at a very key point in probably my life development. So let's do a little bit about my history, and then we'll talk about the big reveal on our featured author. Okay, so I was raised basically starting life as an only child, and we went to a just kind of basic Lutheran church, central USA kind of a thing. Nothing special, just kind of, in my opinion, just a nice little small neighborhood church, generally speaking. And while I do not, at this particular point in my life, consider myself particularly religious, I do consider myself to be a very spiritual person. And I don't attend a church anymore. I don't really follow any particular guidelines for how to believe, and I don't tell anyone how to believe. I think it's a very deeply personal thing. However, there are some writings and some really amazing things out there that can just affect you in a really great way without promoting any particular agenda or thing. Does that make sense? And that's the approach I prefer, kind of the whole Mr. Rogers approach to ministry. And that's, instead of just taking your particular belief system and telling others how to believe, maybe we should act in ways and treat others in ways that makes most sense, right? For the greater good for everyone. And anyway, back to my upbringing. When I was a teenager, there was a Lutheran church camp not too awful far from where we lived. I think it was about 2 hours from the little town we lived in. And I got to go to that church camp one year. Then I worked there for 2 different summers after that because it was just so impactful to me. And the approach at that Lutheran summer camp really wasn't very preachy. Here again, it was kind of this Mr. Rogers approach of kindness and positive mentality, generally speaking. It was still a Christian church camp, and there was still stuff of that nature, that we would engage in, but it wasn't churchy. So it was truly more of the experience and how we all treated each other. And we didn't engage in crappy behaviors towards each other, just seriously. But that camp was out in this big, huge acreage. I don't even know how many acres it expanded. It was a big chunk of area. And they had cabins, they had tents, they had a lake, there was mess halls, everything. I'm curious how it's been developed over the years. I know it's developed tremendously from what it was in the 80s. And anyway, out in the woodsy areas, there was lots of campfire rings, and we would do games and songs, and people would play guitar, and all of the songs were just positive, uplifting, and a lot of times, instead of it being churchy or there being sermons, we would engage in poetry and storytelling and things of that nature. It would be topics that would be meaningful and you could learn from without it being, down your throat, teaching you and telling you, you have to believe this way. You could absorb it however you wanted. And that was a very pivotal time in my life. So one of the books that was very popular amongst all the teenagers, all the counselors, all the staff was by this particular author. And his name was Martin Bell. He's no longer with us. And the name of the book that impacted me so hard is titled The Way of the Wolf. It's short stories, poems, and songs written by Martin Bell because he was a minister. And let's read his bio really quick so you kind of know who he was, okay? And then we'll talk about his books a little bit because even though he's not with us any longer, I contacted his wife and she enthusiastically, her name is Carol, by the way, I hope she's listening to this, she enthusiastically said, "Oh my gosh, the world needs more positivity. I would love for you to read this and maybe people can benefit from it." So she graciously gave me permission to read his work on this podcast because I'm going to do a lot of readings, right? And I was going to do this on the Patreon, but I think all of the Patreon levels are going to end up being uncopyrighted material from the public domain, while all of my free general public episodes will be the copyrighted material. How backwards is that? Is that fun or what? So just really quick with the conclusion to my personal tie to this book. I loved this book and the stories that we would tell from it so much that my dad asked me what I wanted for Christmas one year, and I said, I want a copy of this book. And he got it for me. He ordered it, got it for me, and he wrote into it. And I don't know what happened to it. I believe about 6 years ago, I was purging a lot of stuff from storage, and I was donating a lot of things. And I think a small box with books that I wanted to keep got donated, and that was in it. So I didn't have it, but I ordered myself another hardback copy exactly like the one probably printed right about the same time due to the age that it looks like to read from for you guys. And so I have my hard copy again, but I also ordered a couple books that I didn't realize that this author had written and published. I ordered from his wife and I got those, and then I found a few copies from a used source that's apparently, I think they're out of print. I don't know. Anyway, let's read his biography, and it's taken off of the website. His famous story that I fell in love with is called Barrington Bunny, and that's the name of the website, barringtonbunny.com. Anytime I read from any of his books, that link is going to be in the show description. I'm going to have that link on my link tree. You're going to be able to find that. And if you are interested in any of these products for yourself, I think Carol still has some of his books and also some CDs. So check that out. By all means, support her website. And before we get started on this adventure, I want to thank Carol once again for giving me permission to use Martin's work on this podcast for the greater good and maybe spreading some good vibes, because he had such an amazing approach, an amazing way with storytelling. I haven't even read all of his work, but we're going to start with The Way of the Wolf. And for this episode, we're going to just start with Martin Bell's biography. Next episode, we're going to just dive right into Barrington Bunny. We're going to get started. Oh my goodness. So here we go. This is off barringtonbunny.com. This is his website that his wife maintains. Nationally known author, lecturer, educator, and musician, Martin Bell impacted thousands of lives. The most well-known of his books is The Way of the Wolf, which includes Christmas classic Barrington Bunny. And yeah, it's not Christmas, but we're going to read it when it's not Christmas. We should have Christmas every day, right? We need that giving spirit. That's it. We're going to spread some positivity. Okay, back to the bio. He also authored Return of the Wolf, Nenshu and the Tiger, Distant Fire, Night Places, a suspense adventure, Wolf, and most recently, Street Singing and Preaching, a book of new psalms. Publishers Weekly has described him as a master craftsman. Christian education programs developed by him have been used by churches of many denominations from Pennsylvania to California, Michigan to Alabama. He was a featured speaker at various regional and national gatherings, and on the Chicago Sunday Evening Club television program. Martin's gifts in music were also remarkable. He was a musician all his life. Early on, he played violin, serving as concertmaster of a number of school and community orchestras, all without reading music. That's impressive. Later, he gained proficiency in guitar, piano, and keyboard. Through the Martin Bell Music Studio in St. Ignace, Michigan, he offered artist development and instruction in voice, piano, music theory, and composition. In 2000, Wolfway Records released an unabridged audio version of The Way of the Wolf. This 2-CD set gives audiences everywhere the opportunity to hear Martin's new reading of all the stories from this perennially popular book. And in 2002, Wolfway released Songs from The Way of the Wolf, a reissue of several tunes from the LP record released at the time of The Way of the Wolf's publication. This new album includes 3 bonus tracks, tunes that Martin composed and recorded just within the past year. This was written a while back. So it has 3 bonus tracks. The CD, Just to Be Is a Blessing, also available on his website, includes a new setting for Holy Eucharist and a number of songs on biblical themes. I'm not familiar with that personally. And it goes on. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name of this town right. It says, a graduate of Beloit College of Beloit, Wisconsin, I hope I say that right, and Episcopal Divinity School in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Martin was an Episcopal priest for over 40 years. He pastored churches in Michigan, Indiana, and Alabama, and served as ministry developer in the Diocese of Oklahoma and Northern Michigan. He was chaplain to the University of Michigan, where he and fellow chaplain Dan Burke created Canterbury House, a coffee house that gained national attention. Canterbury House hosted many notable artists, including Gordon Lightfoot, Len Chandler, Maria Mulder, Richie Havens, Paul Stokey, and Odetta. The last years of his life he devoted to writing, music, and recording in St. Ignace, Michigan. Martin Bell died in 2009. Oh my goodness, that's actually pretty recently. I didn't realize that. I'm one of those people that I find something that I like, music, a book, movies, whatever, and I latch onto the material. I don't always dive into the biography of the person that created it. So this is awesome. I loved finding this. And now that you're a little bit familiar with who Martin Bell was and his passion for writing music, and I would say his stories are absolutely music for the soul. Wait until you hear them. So you have that to look forward to. And just another personal touch on this, when I did still have my hard copy through the years, sometimes there would just be parties or gatherings or people were just kind of hanging out. Maybe we did have campfires. We were out camping or something. I would have that book and I would read Barrington Bunny, and people changed. Oh my gosh. It brought us all together. It created deep thinking on a very needed level. And while it is incredible, it has the potential to yank a little emotional response out of you. So make sure you have a couple Kleenex by your bed, just in case it pulls some tears out of you. And I'm going to tell you something else. This story, for just a little anticipation factor, this story, if you've never heard it before or you've never read it before, I believe means something different to everybody that hears it. I really believe it impacts everybody on a personal level, and it's going to mean something very special to you. So I can't wait to share it with you on our next episode. And like I said, I think our Mr. Rogers Theory quest on this podcast is on its way to something really special, I believe. So I hope you're snoozing. I hope you're having a good rest. I hope you've missed all this. I hope you didn't hear any of it, actually. Isn't that weird to say? I hope you're sleeping soundly. But stay tuned for our next episode when we dive into Martin Bell's writings. And I did get a couple of his books that I hadn't had, and then I found some of them that were out of print. And so I'm going to dig through those and find some of the stories and the poems, stuff like that. And my last thought on all of this is, even if you're not particularly religious, maybe you're agnostic, maybe you're atheist, try to think of this presentation of his material as a presentation of positivity and kindness. You don't have to believe anything that you don't want to believe, and I'm not going to push religion. It does have a little bit of a Christian edge to it, but it's fantastic, beautiful work, and it will do your heart some good. It'll make your heart sing, and you might come out the other end with a fantastic outlook. You never know. Oh my goodness, it's wonderful for a reason. And I really want to keep his writings alive. So don't forget, if you would like to check it out on your own, there are CDs available on that website, and she does have a couple of books there. So check it out, barringtonbunny.com, and the link will be down in the show notes, all right, or in the show description, however you're listening. I guess that's all we got for you this time. I can't wait to get started next time. And until then, sleep tight and good night. Bye-bye.